You might recognize his steady voice on Colorado Public Radio, but behind the mic sits a man who has gone through the brokenness of addiction and not only survived, but thrived. Vic Vela is opening up about his dark struggles with cocaine and mental health. He's sharing voices of hope from Coloradans just like you and me, who silently suffer to find recovery in a brand new podcast, Back from Broken.
I believe in comeback stories and second chances.
It was a 98-foot fall. It was not some half-assed attempt. I remember being deeply disappointed when I hit the bottom and stood up.
Addiction is not a Disney movie. It is hell.
I believe in recovery.
I'm not a robot, I'm not a machine, I'm a human being, and I need to embrace that fully.
And I believe this new podcast can really give people some hope.
Well, let's talk about your story, because it was a long time to get to here.
Yeah.
Who was Vic Vela before recovery even started?
Oh, that's a great question. I was someone who was in a lot of pain for most of my adult life. Most going back to childhood. That's the thing about recovery, is that I learned that my problem started long before I even picked up a drug. So we go way back to when I was a kid, and I had behavioral issues, and I had struggles with my sexuality because I knew I was gay at a young age. Growing up in small town Colorado in the 80s and 90s is a different time, right? And and dealing with some problems in my family. My family, the most loving people you will ever meet, they'll give you the shirt off their back. But we had financial struggles that a lot of my friends didn't have. So these were things that already I'm dealing with. And I found that at a very young age, in high school especially, what was the one thing that could really make all those problems go away? It was drugs and alcohol. So that's when I fell in love with booze, LSD particularly. I'm a big deadhead. I'm wearing the shirt right now. And when I took all these mind-altering substances, I realized that, wow, all of this pain I'm feeling, I don't have to think about it, right? It's gone. So I learned at a very young age that self-medicating made all these things go away, or so I seemed, until over the years, my drug use worsened. And instead of, having a couple of drinks at a party or smoking a joint here and there, it became, okay, what's the next drug I can do? Okay, I've done this drug. Let's just do this. Nothing scared me after a while. So pretty soon I'm doing cocaine on weekends. Then I'm doing cocaine on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays and Sundays. And then it became cocaine every day. And then it became throughout the day. I worked in television to start my career. I was a sports anchor for a station in Texas. And it got to the point where I would go into the bathroom, the makeup room, put on my makeup, adjust my tie, and do cocaine off the sink and go on the desk like it was totally normal behavior.
I know January 25th, 2015 is an important day for you.
Yeah.
Take us to that day.
Yeah, everyone always asks what my bottom was. For me, it wasn't like going to prison or killing someone, thank God, although I was heading in that direction. Frankly, it was just exhaustion. I was up for who knows how many days smoking crack, And by this point, I had been smoking crack pretty daily for the last few years. I had done so much cocaine up my nose that I couldn't physically do it anymore. I would get nosebleeds, and so I had to figure out another way to get high, so I would smoke crack. And that's a whole other high-powered vehicle, right, to get high. Maybe very paranoid, maybe very scared of the world, so I would often close the blinds, close the curtains, put another curtain on top of that curtain just to be safe, right, and then look for the black helicopters flying above, right, proverbial. But it was true, like that's the life I lived, and often I would just do that all night by myself after being at the Capitol for a few hours. On this particular night, it was late, maybe 2, 3 in the morning. I had just finished smoking my last rock. I didn't have any more drugs because the drugs always run out. I didn't have any more money. And I'm just sitting on the floor holding an empty pipe in one hand and my cell phone in the other, and I'm listening to these really emotional songs on my playlist, and just thinking, what am I going to do in the morning? Am I just going to try and ask someone else for money? Am I going to figure out another way to hustle to get high? That's exhausting. Waking up every morning in damage control, constant damage control. When you wake up every day trying to fix what you did the day before, that's an exhausting way to live. Oh boy, I just spent my rent money on cocaine. How am I going to fix this? I was tired of it. And there was a gentleman who I'd met during a previous attempt to get sober. It didn't last very long, but I got his number. And I still had his number. And mind you, I was going to call him. And mind you, this was pretty late at night. He could have very well not had my number anymore. He could have had his phone turned off or whatever. But I made the call because I had nothing to lose. And he answered.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Hey Vic, how's it going?" And I just broke down crying. I still get emotional every time I talk about that. And then the very first thing I said was, his name's Rob. I said, "Rob, can you take me to a meeting tomorrow?" And I've been sober ever since. And I think that's, and I think a lot of people can relate to that in terms of just being sick and tired of being sick and tired.
These same people will tell us how they've made incredible comebacks.
I was motivated to do a show about recovery because I'm tired of losing my friends.
So the foundation of this is your personal story is the foundation, but
Yeah.
we're going to hear, who do we get to meet?
We're going to meet like all walks of life. Well, you know, it's going to be a 10-episode first season. If you were to put all these people in one room, they would have zero in common. You know, there'll be a former a professional basketball player, a former pro wrestler, you know, a groundskeeper. These people have very little in common except for one thing, and that's recovery. Recovery from a lot of different things that causes suffering. And I think that was important for me too. I didn't want to, you know, I know my own story in terms of coming back from addiction and drug use, but I wanted to make sure that for the purposes of this podcast, that recovery had a big umbrella. And so you're going to hear stories of someone overcoming PTSD, someone overcoming gambling addiction, someone overcoming depression. Like, these are all kinds of things that a lot of people struggle with, and that a lot of people struggle to talk about.
Right. So I know this podcast, Back from Broken, is going to bring a lot of hope to people.
I hope
know
so.
That's what you're hoping that it does. What is your message for someone who's just, they want to give up, they're really struggling? I mean, you are this ray of sunshine for people who just don't know where to turn to. What do you?
I appreciate
What's
that.
your message to them?
I tell them that look at my story and tell me what you've been through that I haven't already been through. I say this all the time, unless you're in the ground, it's never too late. It took me a long time. I was 37 when I got clean. It's a long time to live doing drugs and alcohol. It took me a long time to figure that out. You know, I've overdosed at least twice that I remember, barely remember. I've been arrested. I've gone through bankruptcy. I contracted HIV. There's been a lot of things that's happened in my life because of my drug use, and yet I'm still here, right? And that's what I try and tell people. So I always try and give them encouragement that they can do it, but I also say, okay, what's holding you back? Why are you different than me? And I think that you find that in recovery, that you're no different from anyone else. Your story may be different, but it's the same story, really.
So when can we listen to Back from Broken?
Yeah,
Where do we get it? 'Cause we're excited.
Thank you. It's Back from Broken. You can go to backfrombroken.org, or just wherever you get your podcasts. You could do the search on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's about honesty and perseverance and hope.
everyone has a different story. Like, it surprises me that everyone has twists and turns. You would think that I've heard all this before. Like, I've been to a million recovery meetings and heard a bunch of people speak. But in the 10 episodes, including mine's going to be one of the episodes, we all have different twists and turns that I didn't see coming.
Right.
And I think that's going to be really the thing that really holds a lot of people's attention, right? That this particular guest's story is a little different than this one. And they're all going to be a little wild. They're all going to be a little crazy, because that's what these things are. But it's all the same thread. They recover, and they're only able to talk about this stuff right now because they went through recovery.
I am looking forward
Hey,
to
thanks, Jeff.
binging on it.
I appreciate
Thank
that.
you for
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah.
Be sure to listen to it. Go check it out. Thank you, Vic.
Thanks. I appreciate it.